Still rocking after all these years.
This is the story of my rock and roll butler.
This is it, the show that started it all. Often imitated, but never equal. From San Francisco, USA. Online since 2004. It's the one and only Rock and Roll Geek Show. With the original Rock and Roll Geek, Michael Butler.
Hey, Loren, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, friend. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear.
Okay, thanks for coming on. We're doing video, but this is not video. This is not going to be video. I may do it as a bonus, but it's audio, so you don't have to worry about picking your nose or anything like that.
Awesome.
The Boy Howdy shirt you're wearing, is that a bootleg or an official?
It was a Christmas present a few years ago from somebody.
Are you a subscriber?
So off the Cream Records website.
Are you a current subscriber to Cream? Oh shit! Fucking hell! I'm losing.
I think we kind of froze.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm gonna have to do this on my phone because I got a shitty Wi-Fi connection. So I'm gonna have to switch from the iPad to the phone. So just bear with me a second. I'm gonna stop recording what I'm doing here.
I was just admiring some of your posters on the wall there.
Hold on, save it for the show. Okay. All right. Thanks again for coming on. As usual, the technical difficulties. You know, I'm in the Podcast Hall of Fame, and I have the most unprofessional show of anybody's show. But
that's probably why you're in the Hall of Fame.
That's right. Are you? So I commented on your Boy Howdy shirt. Are you a current subscriber to Cream?
Not at this point, but somehow there was one of those nice Facebook ads that had a 25% off on, merch. And I got some cups, coffee cups, and T-shirt and stuff. But it's probably a good idea to get a subscription going to that Motor City historic magazine, right?
I don't know if they're still in Detroit or not. There's one person left from that Jan woman is still there, but I don't think anybody else is there.
Right.
But they're keeping the spirit. I'm a subscriber, but it's a really pretty magazine. But anyway, where are you right now? You in L.A.?
Yeah, I'm north of L.A. in Valencia.
Oh, okay. How long you been living in L.A.?
The dogs moved out here actually in 1975.
Huh.
So I've been living here since 75, except from a couple times of moving to England, the band did, and then we went back to Detroit for a few months, but then came back out here. So
75, I was 14. How old were you in 1975?
Maybe like 23, I think.
Oh, shit. What are you, 85 years old? Math is not my forte. So what are you, 80?
I'm a good-looking 85-year-old. No, I'm 72.
Oh, okay. You're not that much older. I'm 63. Are you you work or are you retired? Collect Social Security?
You know what? I was working up till a couple of years ago. Once I decided to grow up and realized that rock and roll wasn't paying the bills, and I got married.
I better give it up then.
Started having a family. I actually got into the music manufacturers type part of the music business and started doing sales and marketing. And the last few years at Korg USA, I was doing artist relations for Black Star amps and Vox amps.
Ah, okay. You do endorsement deals with artists.
I did, yeah.
Oh, you don't do that anymore?
No, I retired 2.5 years ago, and I am one of those rock and roll guys on Social Security.
You and me both, friend.
Yeah.
Got to get it while you can, or because they want you to die before you can collect money from them. So got to get it as soon as you can. That's what I thought. As soon as I turned 62, I said, I'm collecting.
Yeah, I think I was 68 and a half and, started looking into that, even though I was still working for another year or so. But
you said you were starting a family. You married?
Yeah, I got married in the early 90s, so been married since like 93, I think,
Oh,
92.
that's good. 30 years. 30 years. What's so
Yeah,
close enough.
a little over 30 and got two boys. My oldest son lives in San Francisco and works for Jack Dorsey at Square
Okay.
Block.
Mhm.
And then my youngest son lives in Valencia here.
Okay.
So
I'm partially in San Francisco. Right now I'm up in the mountains, but I'm split the time between San Francisco and here. So you going up to San Francisco to see your kid and play a gig at the same time? Because you told me you had a gig in June at Hotel Utah.
yeah, the dogs will be there at Hotel Utah June 7th. And then um yeah, I definitely will hope to see my son. He usually him and his wife come to the shows if they're in town and everything. So yeah, they live in Oakland.
Did the dogs just how long the dogs been reformed? I'm gonna give you full disclosure. I'm not an authority on the dogs because I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and the only punk when I was growing up in punk rock, in the South, all we knew was the usual punk rock bands. We didn't except for what we saw in Rock Scene and Cream and Hit Parader and stuff like that. So I'm not an authority on the dogs. So if I sound like I'm in a dog's illiterate, is because I am.
So, well, you're not alone. I think most of the world is dogs illiterate, except on the in the underground. It's like the dogs live below the underground, it
Yeah,
seems.
true
Um,
legends.
luckily there are some press people out there that have did some, really nice stories over the years on the band and, you know, but we started like in the like late 60s and
Late '60s. So you were how old were you when you started?
I
14?
was like I 10. No, I was like I think 14-ish,
Really?
15,
So the dogs. We were 14 when you started the dogs.
14 or 15,
Huh.
yeah. I was in 10th grade. So started it with my buddy Art Phelps on drums, and then Mary Kay, the bass player, who's still the bass player in the Dogs,
Huh.
answered an ad that we had up at the local music store. And
What were you called when you put the ad out? Did you have a name?
no, no, we had previous bands, but they were never. It was like with 4 or 5 piece, and we were going to try to do the Jimi Hendrix Cream thing and do a trio
Power
uh,
Trio.
with me fronting it. And Mary walked down, and she was like 4 years older than us, and she was like one of those hippies living out in East Lansing around MSU,
Uh-huh.
and we didn't think she'd ever, stick around with us because she walked down into the basement with a flaming orange afro, like Angela Davis meets Jimi Hendrix, and played like Noel Redding, Jack Bruce, and James Jamerson, the Motown
Uh-huh.
session. And we went, there's no way she's going to stick playing with us, but she saw something in us that we didn't even see in ourselves. And that was kind of the beginning of the band.
Oh, good. Did anybody? Because back then, there weren't many girl bass players. We had Susie Quattro, et cetera, et cetera. The Runaways hadn't started. Did anybody say, "Wow, this girl's hot. I would like to date her," or anybody?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, especially guys in other bands
No, I mean anybody in your
Dick.
band.
Um, Not early on because we were terrified of her because she was older than us and
Uh, well, 14-year-old
um
kid too. She
and
couldn't.
everything. Yeah, yeah. And our mothers weren't real favorable for having someone as old as she was playing with teenage boys.
Bad
They thought she was
influence.
she thought they thought she was going to corrupt us.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when she walked down at the second rehearsal with a single 7-inch on Electra of the Stooges, "I Want to Be Your Dog," that really corrupted us. And I had the brilliant idea that we should call the band the Dogs from seeing that
Ah.
single.
Okay.
And then my mom completely hated that name, and I thought, wow, we have a name that offends my mother. It must be good, you know.
Yeah.
So it just kind of stuck.
And you said, Mom, you should see the band we named it after.
Yeah, yeah.
She wouldn't have
She
thought
would
the
have been
dogs was so bad.
no, no. Take one look at Iggy, you know.
I'm surprised back then there were no bands called the Dogs. There was Slaughter and the Dogs, but that was probably that wasn't that would they hadn't even that was way back, way later than that. So I'm surprised there weren't any bands called the Dogs.
You know, there has been, I mean, there was the French punk band that from the 70s.
Yeah, not in
Um,
'69.
but you know, early on, I don't think so. Fast forward to early 2000s when Mario Escovedo from the Dragons was managing us and social media started happening. Mario said, you need to really state that you are the Dogs, and I think we should go the Dogs slash Detroit. So
Right.
it establishes what's going on here, you know. So there's a lot of bands called the Dogs, but you know, I think when you talk to scenesters and stuff, when they might hear the name the Dogs, they think of us. So, you know.
You couldn't really copy. Could you copyright the Dogs? Because you could have maybe had a lawsuit if you were smart enough to copyright. I don't know how people because yeah, a lot of bands will copyright, and like the drummer for a band will copyright the name, and then the band can't continue if they fired the drummer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it would take getting a lawyer and stuff, and I'm sure we could,
Right.
but
Yeah, punk rock kids.
this,
What are you gonna do? You know.
at this stage of the game, being together almost 58 years, I mean, you know, we're not going to spend the money to copyright it, you know?
Yeah. So when you guys were in Lansing, Michigan, that's not in Detroit, but it's close enough to drive to Detroit. Was there a scene in Lansing when you started? Was the bass player from
No,
Lansing?
yeah, there was. It was like teen clubs, and like
Right.
back in
Yeah.
those days, there was the franchised Hullabaloo clubs around the country. And luckily, the Detroit bands were coming up to play at the MSU Student Union, MC5, SRC, and those bands were starting to make it up to Lansing and play, which that's otherwise the Lansing scene was just top 40 bands. And I personally could never learn other people's songs that well. So forced me to write songs. And we always aspired to be as cool as those Detroit bands that were coming up to Lansing.
Yeah, when you're a kid first starting out playing, it's easier to write your own songs than to try to learn cover tunes. You were one of the only original bands, so when the bands would come into to Lansing to play, there probably wasn't that much choice of openers unless they wanted cover bands opening.
Yeah, well, we did early on. We started getting to open for like there would be like a festival, Lake Lansing Pop Festival, that Nugent and the Amboy Dukes would
Uh-huh.
come up, and Dick Wagner was like doing a lot of the VFW halls and armory type gigs, and we got to open for them,
So it was
and
Dick Wagner was it was called Dick Wagner?
it was the Frost.
Oh, the Frost. Okay.
Yeah, and they were on Vanguard Records, but luckily for Dick, he knew Mary from the early 60s in Detroit because he had the Bossmen and she met him back in those days, but he actually helped us play our first proper Detroit shows coming down from Lansing.
Huh. When the bands would come through, you were fans. Were you fans of like Ted Nugent and Amboy Dukes? And I'm sure you were MC5 and Stooges fans. Were you fans of like the Amboy Dukes? Because they were a little more, I guess you could say psychedelic, but they were kind of heavy too.
Yeah, that I mean, when Journey to the Center of Your Mind and Baby Please Don't Go came out, I was seeing them at the Hullabaloo Teen Club, and you know, yeah, you know, Nugent getting that feedback out of that Birdland guitar. I mean, you know, you got to love that.
Yeah.
And you know, and there was one great show that Bob Seger, when Ramblin' Gamblin' Man had came up with the Frost and played the Hullabaloo Teen Club, and that was just a really important show to me because there wasn't that many people there, and you know, Michael, you've played tons of shows, and some of the shows that we all play that nobody's at, sometimes those are the best shows. But that night, if there was 50 people that night to see Bob Seger and the Frost, but they played it like it was a sold out show at Cobo Arena.
Who headlined? Dick Wagner's band or Bob Seger?
Bob Seger.
So it was the System? Is that what the band with Bob Seger? The System? Yeah.
Yeah, and Bob was playing a Gibson Firebird through a Marshall 100-watt stack, and
cool. That's
nice. It was, but it really impressed on me that it doesn't matter about the size of the crowd, that you always got to kick out the jam.
Of course. Did you meet all the guys in those bands like Ted and Bob Seger and all those guys when they would come to town? Would you guys say, "Hey, I'm a big fan"? Would they hang out and talk to you?
No, I never even thought about that. I was just, and probably too shy at that point in my life to even approach guys like that. Did meet Ted way after the fact, when I was working for Korg USA, and went down to his compound in Jackson and got him on Black Star amps and everything. And we chatted then, but he had remembered the Dogs because we played with them at the Agora Ballroom in Columbus, Ohio, also when Stranglehold came out, his solo record.
It's amazing that Ted Nugent remembers just about every single gig that he's played. You ask Ted Nugent, "Hey, you remember you guys played with the Dogs back in 1969?" He would remember where it was and when it was. That guy has a memory like an elephant.
Yeah, probably because, he didn't really get wasted too much. I know maybe early on he drank, but I think he's been pretty straight-laced. He had other vices that he was into.
Right. Yeah, girl, fucking chicks.
Yeah,
don't we all?
Good morning, little schoolgirl,
right. Well, I mean, don't we all? I don't mean young girls. I mean, have girls, period. I don't mean young girls. So lest anybody think that either of us are into 16-year-old girls, don't think that for us. So don't write in, please.
No, not at my age. A 40-year-old woman seems like a young girl.
Yeah, tell me about it, friend. Tell me about it. So you guys moved eventually to, I know you've talked about all this till you're blue in the face, but you got to go through all this for people who don't know about the Dog. So pardon me if I'm asking questions you've been asked a million times. So you guys moved to Detroit from there?
Yeah, we met a guy in Detroit, Bill Sheets, who just recently passed away, but he ended up being our manager, and he had brought us down to live down by Wayne State, where it was all happening for the MC5 in those early days, and it was a ghetto by the time we had moved there, and we wanted to get close to where it all happened at ground zero, shall I say. And
what year was this?
That was like early 1973.
Oh, 73. So Alice Cooper was not in Detroit at that time, I don't think, but Stooges were happening. Nugent was just about to come out with his first solo album. Maybe had Tooth, Fang, and Claw, which was kind of his first solo album. It was still called the Amboy Dukes. 73, there was still Bob Seger. Were MC5 still going in 73?
They broke up New Year's Eve, 1972, going into 73. And we got to actually play with them in November, the month before that, on my 21st birthday. And they had came back from England just barely, they were at the end of their career by then, but they still were great. And that was a fascinating story. It was a great birthday present for me because our manager said, "Oh, you got an audition at the Grande Ballroom, the famous place where they record, kick out the jams. You have to do an audition for the promoter." So we went down there from Lansing. And we got there, and the promoter says, "I didn't tell you to come down." And we're saying, "Wait a minute, you told our manager." And Bill says, "You did." And then the promoter said, "What kind of amps and drums do you have?" And we said, 4 stacks of Marshalls and Roger drums. He says, "Okay, if you let the MC5 use your gear, you can play right before them and share the dressing room.
Oh, okay. Well, MC5 didn't have their own gear back then. They sold it all for drugs, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, the thought to have Wayne Kramer play through one of my
Yeah,
stacks,
I hear you.
Fred Smith through the other, and they were still amazing, but they were not like they were early, 4 years before. But it was an honor to play that.
Yeah,
with
the
them.
the rise and fall of the MC5 is kind of legendary. So yeah, and their legend grows as it goes. So the Grande Ballroom. So did the promoter or the guy who booked the bands at the Grande Ballroom, did he like you guys?
I guess so. I think we played there one other time with another with Cactus. It was
right, Mike
not the
Panera.
original Cactus, but it was maybe one Jimmy McCarty was in the band or something.
Huh, Jimmy McCarty. Okay, I remember the Rockets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Desire. That's a great. That's Ted Nugent's favorite guitar player of all time, Jimmy McCarty.
Well, shoot, he goes back to Mitch Ryder.
Yeah, and he's the reason Ted plays a Birdland.
Really?
Yeah, I saw the Rockets when I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, like I told you. But Rockets opened for just about everybody, and they were a great band. We played Detroit not too long ago, and I played with Handsome Dick Manitoba from the Dictators, and we played Detroit, and Manitoba was like rattling off all these Detroit bands that showing off his knowledge to the crowd. And I said Jimmy McCarty. Somebody said Mitch Ryder from the audience, and I said, yeah, Jimmy McCarty, the Rockets motherfucker, and the geeks in the audience. They were quite impressed with the rock knowledge about the Rockets because I don't think they were huge.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys played Smalls with my friends, the Strains.
Yeah, the Strains, great guys, really.
I think
nice
you did
people.
all. Yeah.
They let us use all, like you guys with the MC5. They let us use all their gear, and they supported us the entire tour. It was only a week tour, but it was a blast. Those guys are really cool guys, and girl.
Yeah, I mean, Handsome Dick. Like when we moved to New York, we ended up meeting the Dictators and met him. And early on in early 70s.
What's your memories of playing with the Dictators?
I thought they were cool because they, for one thing, they were not like Kiss. They were a bit normal because we played with Kiss too. And
what year was this?
Like 70,
like 74, 75?
Late 73 into 74.
Yeah, before there was a thing before it was even called punk rock.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I think this was right before right during the time they got signed to Columbia. And our first gig was, they lived out in the Bronx area, and we played Co-op City, this huge condo apartment complex, and did a kegger with the Dictators. And they were like, they were like, reminded me of like a Detroit band,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
it was cool. We played with them several times. We played with them once in Central Park at the Band Shell free concert. And, a lot of kind of New York street people hang out in Central Park, and they didn't dig either band, and we got egged while we were on stage.
They didn't like the Dictators either?
Both bands got, I mean, it was early on. I don't think people were ready for stuff like that,
Yeah. Dictators had some catchy tunes even back then.
Oh, yeah. Andy Chernoff wrote some really great songs.
Great songwriter, not the nicest of guys, but a great songwriter. Do you know Manitoba, Handsome Dick?
Yeah, the last time I really chatted with him was when Wayne Kramer had the
MC5 stuff, yeah.
Yeah, DKT or something like that, I think it was. And he was Lisa from the Bell Rays and Dick were they would split up the set. And I met him at UCLA Royce Hall, and we chatted, but that was the last time I saw him.
Yeah. So. He and Andy, let's just say they're not the best of friends, as you may or may not know.
Um, I probably figured that, but it kind of happens with guys that been in bands for a long time over the years. It gets kind of strained, I think, sometimes,
So
right?
yeah. So you moved from Detroit to New York. Why'd you leave Detroit?
Um, well, as you said, it wasn't even punk rock then, and we were starting to get arrested for setting up and playing. We and we were starting to cause trouble standing up for rock and roll. Naive kids
You're
not
talking
knowing.
about because Jim Wren. We know Jim Wren is a mutual friend. He has a record label that you guys are on, as are the Strains. He told me that you guys, the story about you guys opening for Bob Seger. You're supposed to go on right before Bob Seger. Is that when you got arrested?
Yeah, that was the pivotal thing that forced us to move to New York. That was at Toledo Sports Arena, and
Toledo, Ohio.
yeah, right over the border. And first thing, Toledo city cops don't like people from Michigan
Huh.
raising hell in their city. We were billed right to play right before Bob Seger. We were all set up on stage, ready to go. Uh, Bob's road manager handler said, Bob's tired. He wants to play now. You guys can play after Seeger plays. We said, we're already set up. We're not going to do that. We've been here all day. Nobody will stay for us. They said, if you go on out on stage and play, you're going to get arrested. And luckily, like back in those days, bands would have people that would invest in them. And sometimes it was, people that sold stuff. I'm not going to talk about it, but illegal stuff.
Right.
And this guy said, I got the money. I'll bail you out. You got to play for rock and roll. So,
Did you guys have a manager back then?
yes, we did.
Where was your manager when their tour manager came up and said that?
Um, he was saying it's not fair, and
No,
and that's
he fought for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
Not very hard though.
one of the financial backers, Frank, said, you got to do it for rock and roll. So we said, we're going to play. And they said, fuck you, you're going to go to jail. So we got on stage in front of 9,000 kids, start plugging in. They pulled the plug before we even hit one note. The drummer starts doing a drum solo. The cops came on stage with billy clubs and started beating people up in
Why
front
is
of,
that against the law?
because we were told we couldn't play, even though we were set up to play.
Did anybody acquiesce and say, okay, we'll go on after you guys?
We weren't going to do that.
Well, that's good. That was pretty punk rocky, you guys.
We had been there all day, and it's just like, wait a minute, why are you telling us this now? Why we set up already, and the audience is waiting for us to play. And
Did anybody go up to Bob Seger and say, hey man, can you give us a break? Let us play a few songs.
you know what? Nobody. Things got heated up really quick backstage with his handlers and the promoter, and we weren't afraid of conflict. I will say that. Anyway, everyone, they started beating the shit out of everybody in the band.
Cops did.
The cops did. The whole band, except for myself, was arrested, and about 3 or 4 roadies. They got charged with felony charges inciting to riot, which the next Monday the judge threw out court. But in the meantime, Diversified Management, who booked all those Detroit bands, said to all the promoters, if the Dogs are on the bill, you can't get our bands. And so we were basically blackballed for standing up for rock and roll.
As a manager, I would have thought getting that in the newspaper would have been good for the band.
It was in the Detroit Free Press, the underground paper. Bob got a bad write-up saying he was like a rock star and this happened. But business-wise, we couldn't get a gig. So we decided on a whim just to move to New York with no gigs booked, no place to live. And and wake up to reality in Manhattan.
That sounds a lot like a band I used to be in from Jacksonville, Florida, called Stevie Stiletto and the Switchblades. We used to burn.
I love that.
We called it burning bridges. We would move to a town, we'd get into trouble, get banned from playing gigs in that town, and then we'd pack our shit and move on to the next town.
That band sounds cool.
Yeah. That's punk rock, man. That's what you do. So you moved to New York. Did you have a place to stay in New York? Did you work or anything?
No. Well, eventually some people started to, but
You live in the van?
We had a big U-Haul type truck with a box in the back and a Falcon car of some sort. But we basically stayed in the city parks for a couple days and
done that
until we got a loft at Atlantic and Fourth in Brooklyn. And
where'd you get the money for the loft? Well, I guess places were cheaper back then, but where'd you get the money?
Yeah, and we had a few $100s, we took with us and stuff. But we thought a loft was industrial area. Nobody lived in them. And we start rehearsing and we got kicked out of there after a couple of weeks because of 4 stacks of Marshalls. And then luckily the nice artistic bohemian folks of Manhattan helped us out. And we went and got to crash at the Electric Circus on St. Mark's Place when it was an off Broadway kind of venue, and they were still doing some shows, but and we met this real estate guy in Manhattan that would let us crash in his different empty restaurants around the village, east and west. So but we ended up saving enough money to get an apartment on McDougal and a basement apartment on Bleecker for the road crew to live in.
And this was 74. How long did you stay in New York?
The first time there, we stayed about 6 months, and then we went back to Detroit to regroup and get money together, and then came back.
You moved back with your moms or your parents?
No, we went back to our band house in Detroit that other friends had kept, this 13-bedroom Victorian house that we had.
When you got back to New York, were you still blackballed? Or I'm sorry, Detroit, were you still blackballed?
You know what? We got to do a couple shows around the Midwest. And then we headed back to New York. But by that time, I mean, we had met Kiss when they did their Diplomat Hotel show. And I was pretty naive. I had went up to them and found out that they were putting a show on and asked if we could play the first day that we arrived in Manhattan. And I think it was Paul Stanley said, "Look, man, this is New York. You can't come here from New York and think you can play on a Kiss show."
Yeah, wrong thing to tell a little punk rock kid from Detroit, right?
Yeah, but my first thought, I go, these people in New York are kind of harsh. But I mean, Paul he did have a point. But he said, if you get a gig, we'll come and see you, and if we think you're cool, maybe you can play with Kiss.
Oh, isn't that nice of him?
Yeah, so we ended up playing with the Dictators at the Coventry in Long Island City, and they came out and seen us play with the Dictators, I think, and then they gave us a weekend to play with them.
That's nice. Okay.
Yeah. So, but we played with Television at Max's. We met Debbie Harry. We played with Dictators a few times, and the New York scene was cool, I thought, because it was all the bands were different, but they were the same. They had the same kind of...
Same attitude.
Same attitude, but Talking Heads is not the Dictators. Kiss is not.
Everybody's doing their own thing, but that's what they were all oddballs.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was very refreshing, and it was great for us coming from Detroit and Lansing. I mean, we were uneducated on world culture, which you go to New York, you learn about different cultures from around the world and the food they eat, and it was a great learning experience in so many ways.
This was before the Dead Boys and CBGBs and all that.
Yeah, we did an audition at CBGB's on a Sunday afternoon, and Hilly said, "You don't pass the audition, you play too loud." So we never got to play there. But it did get loud a year or two later, with Ramones and
Yeah.
Dead Boys and everybody playing there. But
Who was playing around that when you auditioned? Who were the bands that were playing the CBGBs then?
you know what? It was more like because that the CBGB stands for something
Right.
bluegrass,
Yeah, country
blue.
blues, bluegrass, or
Yeah,
something.
so it was kind of more like that. But he was starting to see that the New York Underground was a cool thing, and I think he opened the variety of bands
Yeah.
being, and it helped the New York scene out a lot.
You walked in with 4 Marshall stacks.
Wherever we played, I mean, we played with four Marshall stacks at Max's Kansas City, which you could use a Fox AC-30 and be fine in that place. So
Yeah, Alice Cooper band probably had Marshall stacks and Max's too.
yeah, but yeah, our sound guy always said, you can use just a half stack and it will be
Yeah, but don't
fine.
don't look as cool.
No, it doesn't,
You
and
still.
luckily for us, we had a lot of roadies and stuff, so
Uh,
we didn't have a problem with loading that stuff up.
you still
Stand.
have those 4 Marshall stacks?
No, we sold everything when we went to England in '78.
So
I
you moved
sold
from New York to England?
No, when we moved to LA and we got established in LA in '75.
What made you want to move to LA?
Well, after the New York thing, we went back to Detroit and our manager booked a tour all the way to Florida. And so we played like, Memphis,
Uh,
Atlanta, different cities. And disco in the middle of like April and '75, that was when disco was happening.
right, yeah.
We started to see a trend. We were getting fired for playing too loud and too fast, which we didn't understand. And the third time that happened down in Orlando, our drummer Ron Wood quit the band, and we said, "Fuck it, we're not going back to Detroit. We're going to go to L.A." Because we always had fantasies about Beach Boy culture of
The
cars and
Doors
planes and surf
and
and
Alice Cooper was living there too around that time, probably.
yeah. And there's a great story
Frank
about
Zappa and all that.
it. Actually, I had an issue of the Cream magazine, what
Uh-huh.
I'm wearing here,
Uh-huh.
and it was Alice, and it had a map of Hollywood, Alice Cooper's favorite haunts.
Uh-huh.
So by the time we got off the Hollywood freeway at sunset, we knew where to go, and we saw, oh, there's Pink's hot dog stand, the Starwood, the whiskey, or whatever, and so that was a real helpful map of the city to kind of get us orientated into Hollywood.
Did you ever go upstairs to the lair of the Hollywood vampires at the Rainbow upstairs?
No,
That
I mean,
Alice Cooper and but you know about the Hollywood vampire. Alice Cooper, Harry Nilsson.
yeah, of course.
If you go upstairs, it's etched in the wall in one of the wooden beams up there, and it has here is the lair of the Hollywood vampires, and has everybody's name. I think they might have even autographed it. It's a cool. You can walk up there. They just let you go in, I think.
Yeah, the good old days. So, yeah, the whole thing in LA, it was easy to survive, way easier than Manhattan. And
Weather's better.
yeah, exactly. That's why we have such a homeless situation these days because the weather's so good, it just draws homeless people there, I think.
Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, we were homeless. I
Yeah,
mean, when we got
yeah.
to town, we asked the
Back then it
star.
was called. Back then you were called gypsies.
Yeah, rock and roll gypsies, right? We even asked the Starwood if we could pull our vehicles into their fenced parking
I'll
lot,
sleep there.
and they let us do it until and then we ended up getting a space on Gower Street between Sunset and Hollywood that we ended up naming High Time Studios. We had a room that we set up for rehearsals, and we started renting it out to the local bands, and we got really established in LA quick.
Who'd you play with? Some of the bands that you played with in L.A.
Well, we partnered up with the early version of the Motels
Uh-huh.
and a band from the East Coast, the Pop, and ended up putting this kind of rock and roll gang together called Radio Free Hollywood. And we started putting shows on, which opened the door for the Starwood and the Whiskey to start booking. Because it wasn't punk, as you said, back in those days. And the word or the phrase new wave was just coming about. So it was like that new wave thing of 76,
Uh-huh.
was starting to develop. But luckily I mean, the Dogs' first show in Hollywood at one of the major clubs was the Starwood, and we played open for Van Halen and Quiet Riot.
Huh. Well, how'd you guys go over?
The thing with the Dogs, because we grew up in Detroit and we saw how the Amboy Dukes, MC5, Brownsville Station, and those bands did it. And it was sort of hard rock, but we were influenced, by the Stooges and MC5, which later on people thought was punk rock. So we could appeal to the Van Halen crowd. It was a tough crowd. Opening for Van Halen was not easy, though. I mean, they were strictly there to see Van Halen,
Right.
and but that led to a kind of a working relationship with those guys, and but we were lucky in those days to open for AC/DC at the Whiskey 3 nights, their American debut.
You did all 3 nights?
All 3 nights, 2 shows a night. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
And it was great.
Did you get paid?
We made more money in those days than we make now. I
Yeah,
mean,
tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yes,
man.
we got $300 a night back in those days.
That's good money back then.
It was.
Shit, it's
And
good money now for bands.
yeah, if you got a $300 guarantee today and you can sell $300 or $400 of merch, maybe you can break even going out of town to play. Right?
I'll bet you Hotel Utah that you're playing at in June 7th, I'll bet they don't even have a guarantee.
We do have a guarantee.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Good for you guys.
The Dogs, I mean, if we go out of town, we do. I mean, the band's 58 years old. I mean, if we can't get it somewhat of a guarantee, it's a cardinal sin. But some cities you don't, and you roll the dice. I mean, we just went back. We went back to Lansing, Michigan, and Detroit in October, and we rolled the dice. But I knew coming back home, the shows would be good. And they were great. And we actually ended up bringing back a lot of money off of door deals back in Michigan.
Probably the Dogs in Detroit and in the Michigan area are probably legendary now because you become, the legend grows after you, as time goes by.
Yeah. Well, who are these guys we've read about, but we've never really heard about? Yeah, it was good. And in fact, that show at the Lager Room in Detroit was great.
What was the venue?
The Lager Room.
Okay.
I know that you guys played Smalls, but the Lager Room is this really cool, down and dirty, kind of sleazy place.
So is Smalls. Smalls is a little bit down and dirty, sleazy too. Great people at Smalls. The people in that place.
But that's Jim Wren was there that night.
Yes, he was. You know who else was there? Wes Beach from the Plasmatics was there.
Really?
And as a Plasmatics fan, I was like really happy.
But
that's Jim. You're holding up Jim Wren's 7-inch.
Yes, in that photo, my friend Ray Perez from Lansing, our road manager, took this photo on stage at the Lager Room, and Jim had the brilliant idea to get his illustrator in Detroit to do caricatures of us.
Great artwork. And what's the guy's name?
The artist's name, here, I'll tell you here. I'll open up the credits here. This is an amazing package that he did, and they're all different. They're different versions that you get, but the illustrator is Brian Watsby is his name.
Jim Wren's got a cool thing going. He puts out these 7-inches, I-94 recordings. That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
He's got a cool thing going. He puts out these 7 inches, and on the front side is is an original from the artist, and then the back side is a cover, right?
Yes, which we did. There's the original Inside Out, a nice 2 minute, 30-second slab of Detroit rock.
Uh-huh.
And then this is the cover done by the Ramrods, and they were a great band, Detroit band in like 1976, 77. And Jim said, don't think you can do a Motown song or the typical MC5 Stooges. They've all been done. And he said, maybe listen to this band. And I listened to a couple of their songs, and the song Nothing to Do in Detroit resonated with me. And we actually did a rockin' version of that song. It's really great.
So the cover that he would that he does on the side B of his 7 inches, they're all Detroit band covers, covers of Detroit bands.
The Detroit series is, you have to do a cover by a Detroit artist.
That's a great idea.
And on this cover, Jim had the idea. There's let's see, right here where my finger is, that's Jim Wren.
Of course it is.
And that's Cat Todd.
I don't know who that is. Is Ricky Rat in the picture?
Sirius Trixon from the Motor City Bad Boys is there.
Okay.
Ricky's not, but there's Angus and Bon Scott. There's Bob Tyner. Here's a pissed off Bob Seger.
Great, good job, Jim Wren.
Jim really does it up, and the thing about his collector series is there's colored vinyl.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Different colors. And then the fronts and backs are all different. Like, I mean, this is different photos, and then the inside photos are different. So, yeah, he did an amazing job on it, and we're so glad to be a part of the series. Like you mentioned, the Strange, who played with Handsome Dick with you, their single just came out before ours did, and it sounds ripping too.
Yeah, their cover. What cover did they do? I played it on this show. It's a really good tune.
Yeah, they did. They did Johnny Angelo's band. I forget what they were called, but yeah, great band, great Detroit band.
What's
Torpedoes?
Yeah,
the Torpedoes.
That's right. Yes, I forget the song, but it's a great song. What's Jim's deal? Does he print? Is his royalty thing? Does he just give you a bunch of 7 inches? Because Manitoba's got a record coming out in Detroit on, I think it might be the same label that you guys are on. Bad something. What's it?
Oh, yeah. I just saw that is Heavy Medication.
Heavy Medication, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pat Todd helped introduced us to that label, and I know Frank Meyer, and I believe
right,
you
yes.
played with Frank Myers.
He's the guitar player in Manitoba's band, yes.
Who's the other guitar? Is it Alex Kane?
Alex Kane was. Frank took Alex's place, and you were probably dealing with Alex when you worked at Black Star, but Alex is not doing it anymore. We got Frank to take his place. The other guitar player is a guy named Craig Bearhorst, who I play in a band with out here in San Francisco called the Butlers. He was in a metal band called the Ruffians. Not a punk rock guy, so it's more of which is good for Manitoba, because you want a punk rock guy on one side, and to me, I put the band together, but
right.
You want a punk rock guy on one side and a rock and roll guy on the other, in my opinion. So he's more like a hard rock guitar player, ripping, more bluesy than Frank. Frank's more of a punk rock guy. Frank plays with Leaving and Fear too. So you got one bluesy guy on one side and a punk rock guy on the other side. But yeah, that's the band. So anyway, the bad, what the fuck, Heavy Medication. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, Derek in Warsaw, and he's got a great label. Like, he's had Neverland Ranch Davidians on it, Street Walking Cheetahs.
Yeah,
he did the Dogs Hypersensitive, which we had put out in 2010, I think. And they
only do vinyl, right?
Yes.
So our, I think it's not our, I mean, it's Manitoba's deal. They give, but he prints up a very limited number, and your royalties are, you get I don't know, you get like 25% of how many he prints, and you sell them at the shows, and that's your. So you don't have to go worry about collecting, and whatever you sell them for, you can sell them for $1,000 if you want to, and that's your, that's your cut.
Which is
it's a better record deal than than trying to collect.
It's great because I mean I've got a few copies of Hypersensitive left, and it's great because, as you know, Michael, selling merch is the lifeblood for any band, and people love vinyl. So if you're going to pay for your own vinyl to be pressed, you're like, to get 100 albums, it's going to cost you $1,500.
Not to mention you got to wait a long time. I don't know how Jim Rinn does it, but Heavy Medication, they're Spanish, right? Spain label.
No, from Warsaw, Poland.
Ah, okay, yeah, Poland. I think that's where most vinyl's printed, in Poland.
Yes, yeah, they got some great plans.
Okay, so Heavy Medication had a deal with Manitoba. They had a deal with a Spanish label, so it's kind of like a combo. I could be wrong on this. It was a Frank Meyer.
Ghost Highway.
Yeah,
out
something
of
like
Spain.
that. Yeah,
it's a dual release. Well, that's good because that ensures you guys, when you go tour Europe, you've got distribution over there.
That's right. So we'll collect. So we're doing a Spain tour next week. We start, and the first gig is actually when the record is released. So we get our vinyl that first gig. So yeah, hopefully we'll sell out before the tour's over. Yeah,
well, I would imagine, and
you never know. You never know. Richard can. Richard has a way of doing things that piss people off, but I won't go there.
Are you guys touring Spain and Europe, or is it just Spain?
No, we're just doing Spain. We're doing 9 shows in Spain, 9 or 10 shows, something like that in Spain.
You guys, I know you've been there before, but Spain is amazing to play.
Dictators are big in Spain too.
Yeah.
Hopefully they know, Hopefully they know the name Handsome Dick Manitoba.
Oh, I'm sure they do. And I will throw this out, a little bit of self-promotion.
Yeah, that's what you're here for, friend.
If Handsome Dick comes to the West Coast, it'd be Old Home Week to get the dogs to support you guys.
I'll connect you with Richard's manager. It would be cool to play with you guys. Because it would be real cool to play with you guys. Do the whole tour together.
Yeah. And
remind me after we get off the phone. I'll connect you with John.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah. So you're back now. I should bring up that the major label band you were on. I don't know anything about Little Caesar except I've heard the name. And our drummer actually used to play in Circus of Power, who are kind of affiliated with Little Caesar a little. They're from that same scene, I think. Or from that same time.
Yeah. Well, Little Caesar got signed in late '89, and we did our first album with Bob Rock up in Vancouver.
Right.
It's supposed to be the next big thing after Guns N' Roses. We had Jimmy Iovine as our manager. Everything looked like it was going to succeed. And
labels at the time were signing everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, we had, we were not like the LA bands. I mean, Junkyard was our buddies, and they were on, and we were like part of like the dirt bag kind of rock and roll.
There was the Rock City Angels. There was Circus of Power. There was Little Caesar. There was Junkyard.
Rhino Bucket.
The Hangmen.
Yep.
It was a little bit, it was the kind of like the crossover between glam or whatever you call it, the hair metal and the punk.
Yeah. So, when Nirvana came out, Geffen lost interest on our second album.
Yeah. We
went to England and toured. It was great. Came back and the band broke up. By that time, it was like one calamity after the next. Typical rock and roll.
Everybody's
story.
Dreams shattered. They get signed to a major label and they get dropped and their dreams are shattered and then they break up.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a power ballad?
We did. Geffen tried to turn the band into Bon Jovi, and we were, we thought we were somewhere between AC/DC and Humble Pie
Sure.
and Rolling Stones, maybe.
Did you get suckered into turning and trying to be Bon Jovi?
They tried to change the way we looked and try to release ballads. And, luckily, Ron Young, the singer, is a really great vocalist, like Otis Redding, kind of R&B like. And we could do songs like that and still keep them legitimate without being bubblegum, shall I say. But, yeah, we broke up for 8 years or so, and it was the early 2000s. We actually decided we wanted to play again. We don't need the label. And we started doing our own records. We've been to Europe 10 times, and we just got back from Nashville a few weeks ago.
Oh, so you're still in Little Caesar.
Yeah, there's 3 original members. Ron Young.
Probably better gigs than the Dog. I don't know, maybe not.
Well, and let me tell you this. When we went to England last September, we played with Thieleke, who was deaf and also, and we did theater gigs. So
there you go. Look at that.
So
and you guys do the Monsters of Rock cruises and M3 and stuff like that?
We did M3 once. We canceled out of Monsters of Rock during COVID because I had a health scare, and my doctor said you can't go on a cruise ship with COVID still rampant. So we've never been asked back since we got canceled. Hopefully they'll ask back, but you never know.
Well, that's cool. So so now you got 2 things going. When's the last Dogs gig you played?
We played April 12th, which was
not too long ago. Where was that?
We did our single release party.
Oh, you played up in Detroit. That's what you said. You played in Detroit.
No, we did a Los Angeles record release show here.
What venue?
Maui Sugar Mill.
Oh yeah, okay. How was the crowd?
It was great. It was jam packed. Every time we play with Pat Todd,
oh yeah, Rank Outsiders. Is that what this band is?
Yeah. So, Dogs have a couple shows. We're playing Pasadena with The Cry, which is an early '80s hard band. We're doing an NA benefit for NA, which is a 10-year annual celebration to newcomers, which is really interesting.
Are you a what do you call it, a NA guy?
I'm in AA. My drummer is too. And,
AA, not NA.
Yeah, and my drummer's more NA type guy. Yeah, he used to hang out with Johnny Thunders a lot, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But and then we go to San Francisco and play next month, June 7th. So,
well, that's great. So everything's going okay in Loren's rock and roll world.
Yeah. I got a great San Francisco poster. You see that green thing? That is the Stooges at the Fillmore with Alice Cooper opening.
What year?
God, I would say it's Iggy and the Stooges it's Iggy and the Stooges and Flaming Groovies.
Flaming Groovies were big back then in San Francisco. We do a Flaming Groovies tune with Manitoba.
Which one?
Still Slow Death. It's on what is it on? Blood Brothers, I think.
Oh, great song.
Yeah, it is a great song. And the 2 guitar players, Frank and Craig, they rip it out. So that's a great poster. That when they made the posters at the Fillmore, they only made the posters when the shows were sold out. They only gave out posters then.
Yeah, you got Commander Cody on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think the admission is like $5.
What does that say on the top? New Fillmore? What's it? New?
Yeah.
Oh, the New York Fillmore, New York. I can't see the words on it. It's a little bit blurry.
It says New Old Fillmore.
Oh, in San Francisco. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
What's the other poster? Is that a wrestler behind you?
That a friend of mine.
The one next to the not the character, but the one next to the Stooges poster on the far left.
My friend John Demansky, who's from Lansing, he did that.
Well, it's a cowboy.
Yeah, it's a cowboy, and he also did that guy right there too.
Is that John? I can't see because it's small. Is that Johnny Cash?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
think so.
And what's the dogs commit? You got two dogs plaques there.
Those came from Japan when we went on our tour, and Detroit Jack, who brought us to Japan, was commemorating our albums and stuff like that, you know.
Was there I thought I heard you say there was a dogs tribute album in Japan.
There is.
Hey, that's something to if somebody does a tribute album to a band that you were in, that's pretty fucking good, man.
Yeah, I thought it was a joke at first when he said he was going to do it, but he got all the prestigious, cool underground punk bands in Tokyo. D4 from New Zealand covered John Rock and Roll Sinclair, our single, and yeah, it was an honor to go to Japan in 2007 and play with all the bands that did
Yeah.
their versions of our songs. I mean,
Not to mention Japan's a great place to visit.
oh, they are such fans of music. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you talk about the food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the dictators are not big in Japan. Otherwise, I'd be telling you when I'm getting ready to go. But unfortunately, dictators are pretty much unknown in Japan, I think.
Yeah, I can't wait to chat with you offline and pick your brain about your career. I mean, I kind of know
Well,
about
we
it.
can pick my brain right now. We got a recording if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to split in about
Yeah.
10.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. Give me a call anytime, friend.
But what first, like your early San Francisco thing? I mean, I know that you've done some famous bands. Just kind of fill me in if you can.
I didn't move out to San Francisco till '89, but my wife was around that scene, the Mabuhay scene, a lot, and she was dating this guy from his band SVT back then. But I moved out in '79, and that was and there was like verbal abuse in band. There was not much. There weren't legendary bands. I joined a band called Exodus, a metal band. That was a big band I was in.
Right.
And I was in Jet Boy for a while. My friend Billy Rowe, who plays in Buck Cherry, was in Jet Boy, and I played.
So yeah, Jet Boy. That's what I had read because Caesar played with Jet Boy a few times, and they're kind of like in the same scene as Hangman and
Right,
Junkyard,
yeah.
and we've played with Jet Boy a few times.
Yeah, I probably wasn't in the band. I know I'm close with Mickey Finn and Billy still. I played in a band called American Heartbreak with Billy Rowe, and we played with your friends in the Dragons many times.
Yeah, Billy Rowe is cool, especially with his rock and roll relics guitar.
Yeah, he just made me a bass not too long ago. It only took him 4 years to make it, but it was well worth the wait.
What's it like? What style?
It's like a Les Paul Jr. body shape bass,
Oh,
which
sweet.
was a 59 EBO bass back then. It's the 1 year EBO or 1 or 2 years of EBO. They made a Melody Maker body style. It's a short scale neck. It sounds fucking amazing, but I don't bring it out and play with me because I like to bash the guitar around, and I don't want to mess that one up at this point.
Now, I've seen videos of Handsome Dick when Alex Kane was in the band, and
Yeah.
I've seen videos. So I didn't know until like right before we did this interview that's who Michael Butler was.
Yeah. Yeah, I've known Alex for a while too. He's talking about reforming his old band Life Section. Alex is a great guy. Alex is a major talent.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, there was some things happen between, you know how it is out on the road. People get on each other's nerves, and he just felt like he didn't want to do the next tour. So Frank came into the picture, and Frank's punk rock to the core, and Alex has to make his living doing rock and roll, and sometimes you don't make as much money as you want to, and all that stuff. You know how it is.
Yeah, Alex, I had met him through the Black Star thing, and then he actually went and did 2 tours with Little Caesar to Europe.
Oh, really? Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you play with him? Did you play in the band with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex is great on stage. Super great stage presence. Great singer. Great songwriter. Super talented guy.
Yeah, he lives and breathes rock and roll.
Yes, he does. As do we all.
Yeah, to our benefit or detriment, I don't know, but I
You
know
know, it's
I'm,
made. It's not, as the dictator said, rock and roll made a man out of me, and it's not for the weak of. It's not for the weak.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I believe the same thing. It's just like uh, you know, I play in different bands, I manage bands, I do this or that, and it's my whole life just revolves around music. And I keep thinking like, oh well, when are you gonna grow up? But
Then
this is
you die. You
yeah,
know
even my day gig was all around for 27, 28 years was all around music. So
that makes
I
you a lifer, friend.
yeah, I feel blessed that it's just
You
about
look
the
good for
music.
70.
72.
72. You're older than Richard. You're older than Manitoba. You look, well, I'm not going to put down Manitoba. You look better. I would say you look better than Manitoba, but I don't want to get fired from Manitoba's band before
Oh,
this thing even starts.
he has a thing about him though. I guess he's kind of
Yeah.
sweet.
I love Manitoba. He's a cool. You met him.
Yeah, several
Fucking
times, but it's been
fuck
years.
the
Tell him
fucking
hello.
I will tell him. He called while we were starting this thing, and I didn't answer. I should have answered and put him on the
Yeah,
line with you.
nice,
But he
nice.
would have talked. He wouldn't. You wouldn't have got a word in. He likes to talk. He likes to talk. That man.
Yeah.
Sometimes he
Well,
likes to talk a little too much. It's a couple of the shows. He'll get into these stories sometimes. This is the constant. What do you call it? Conflict when you're out with Manitoba. We want to his band. We want to rock out on stage, and when we're playing the songs, the audience is fucking loving it. I mean, it's full on rock and roll. I know you got to go here. Let you go in a second. The audience is full on rock and roll. Then Manitoba will start telling stories, and half the crowd loves these stories. He can tell stories forever. Half the crowd loves them. The other half is saying, "Come on, let's get to the rock and roll." So we're standing on stage, and sometimes his stories will literally go for 20 minutes before we get into actually he'll tell during Two Tub Man. He'll start telling a story before we finish the he'll tell the audience, "Oh, I want you to come in and yell Two Tub Man," but he'll get sidetracked and start telling a story, and Two Tub Man ends up being a 30-minute song.
amazing.
Yeah, it's
Well,
amazing for some people.
it's a fine line to do those stories and maybe just
We're hoping, fortunately, people in Spain don't speak English, so he knows to not let the stories go too long. So we'll see.
that's true. Not a lot of people speak English or understand it, but there are people that do. But hey, well, listen, thank you for bringing me on, and good luck leaving next week on your Spanish
But
tour
yeah, let's hope we make it. Okay,
with Dick Manitoba, and say hello to my friend Frank Myers
I will. I
and to
will.
Dick. And
Loren, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to close out with a song after we get off the phone. What would you like me to play?
nothing to do in
I will
Detroit.
do that, friend. And make sure later. I'm going to post this probably later on tonight or tomorrow morning. So send me all your links and stuff, and I'll put them in the show notes and everything.
Okay, you
And
got it.
everybody, let Loren from the Dogs know you heard him on the Rock and Roll Geek Show, so he doesn't think he wasted 1 hour and 8 minutes and 25 seconds of his time.
It was the fastest 1 hour and 8 minutes I've ever
There you
been
go. I
chatting
appreciate
with.
it,
So
friend.
thank you,
All
Michael.
right, Loren, have a good one, friend.
Take care. Bye bye.
There you go. Loren from the Dogs. Really super nice guy. I enjoyed that. It was a good talk. Good little geek out session. All right. As requested from Loren, here is the B-side of the Dogs. The opposite side is Inside Out. And this is the B-side, which is a cover of a Detroit band song. And for the life of me, I don't remember the name of the artist that they're covering. But this song is called Nothing to Do in Detroit. Thank you for listening, friends. You know how to reach me. rockandrollgeek.com is where you can find the show. You can email me, rockandrollgeek@gmail.com. Find me on the Facebook, R&R Geek. Find me on the Twitter, R&R Geek. Find me on the Instagram, Rock and Roll Geek Don't Ask. Go to the show notes at rockandrollgeek.com, and you'll have all the ways you can reach Loren from the Dogs. Super cool guy. I'm looking forward to talking to him more. And as usual, it's a value for value. There's no advertisers on this show, so nobody can tell us what we can and can't say except for you, friends. So if you get any value out of this show, please contribute whatever you think it's worth to you. Patreon, PayPal, Venmo, at Michael-Butler-11. I'll talk to you soon, friends. The next time you'll talk to me is from Spain, if all goes as well. I'm going to be doing a show every day in Spain, a show a day for the 9 days I'm playing with Manitoba. Probably a show before as well when I get to Spain, and a show on the way back as well. So you get probably 10 or 11 back-to-back shows from the Rock and Roll Geek Show. What other podcast is going to do that for you, friends? Help your friend out and contribute what you think it's worth to you. Here's the dogs. Nothing to do in Detroit. I'll talk to you next week.
It's a rock and roll geek train wreck.